Stephen Bardo from the Big Ten Network and from Bardo's Tribe. Don't forget, make sure you go to it's bardostribe.com, right?
That's correct. Yep.
And then there's a second one. What's the other one?
I don't have it pulled up. Bardo's Breakdown. You can find it on Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, make sure you go to those and expand your knowledge. That way you'll know that Craig Bardo was on the 81 team in Indiana. You won't be dumb like me and not you'll have so much knowledge that you won't know what to do with it. Just like you today with games, how much, even though you have been around this game, you've been around this conference, every game, how much prep goes into broadcasting a game?
Oh, Jim, that's a great question. I mean, you try to catch the coaches' shows. You try to go back and look at the preseason media kits that the SIDs put together. You try to find the local beat writers and see if you can go back and look at all of the articles. Then, we try to have calls with the coaches. Then you go to shoot-arounds, and you're just trying to glean as much information as you possibly can. And so it's an ongoing process. Once the season starts, it's nonstop. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint how much you do per game, if that makes sense, because it's constant. But that's why we love to do what we do. And so you're inundated once the season starts. So you just try to get as many bits of information from as many different sources as you possibly can.
Yeah, and right now the preseason is kind of a hodgepodge because you've got a lot of teams, or most teams, that are playing other teams that they're not exhibition, but they're designed to be get ready type of games. But then you mix in some big ones. For Indiana, we all know that UConn's coming up, Auburn's coming up, Kansas is coming up, and those are as tough as any conference game that you're going to play. But Indiana has started their season so far, and it's some mixed reviews, but that's what you're supposed to have early on. Then the last game, McKenzie and Bardo didn't have the best game, and people kind of start going a little crazy. It's like, dude, he's a freshman. That's his first real game. There's going to be a learning curve. It doesn't matter really who you are. There's always a learning curve, and he's included in that. Not that because Todd Leary continues to say he is one of the best shooters he's seen come to Indiana in quite some time.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that everyone this season in particular was a little bit thrown off by the high level of exhibition games that we saw leading up to the regular season. So I think that gave people a false sense of, okay, these guys are in midseason form, and they're not. It's still November. You saw Michigan State get popped at home now by a very good James Madison team. They're very good, but historically, that's Tom Izzo's first home loss in November in 29 seasons. So that was a great reminder that we're very, very early. And so McKenzie is going to be fine because his elite shooting level there's not many in the country that can shoot the ball as well as he can. And so he's still getting adjusted to the speed of the game. Yes, he's a 5-star recruit. Yes, he was a huge get for Indiana, but he's just like every other freshman. Cohen Carr at Michigan State, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn at Illinois. They may show flashes of brilliance, but they're still freshmen trying to get adjusted to the speed and strength of this game.
And I think a big part of that is not just on the offensive side. It's on the defense. It's making that mixture of playing that high level of defense and mixing that in back with the offense. You've got to be up on both ends, and that speed you talk about, man, their head has to be on a swivel right now on the defensive side.
It is, because generally players as talented as McKenzie in high school, they're not asked to play a ton of defense, and it's a rarity that you have a freshman that understands defensive principles. That's the biggest part. What people really don't understand, they think that you have to have offense to get on the floor at the college level. That's not it. you've got to be able to defend, to get on the court at the college level, because defensive, you might be able to score 10 points, but if you're giving up 14 points on the other end, you're going to lose. And so that's the thing that is the most difficult part. So consider this, Jim. You're coming up to a level, and it's not just you're coming to college, you're coming to Indiana, and you're coming to play for a coach in Mike Woodson that demands you understand defensive principles, coverages, and the way that they do things defensively. And so McKenzie's still trying to remember what the heck is the defensive shift this time down the floor, let alone being in tip-top shape, let alone having his legs to get under him on the offensive end when he gets his number called. So it's a lot for freshmen that come into college basketball that star immediately. That's we've grown accustomed to seeing a few of those, but that's the anomaly. That's not the norm.
Yeah, and it's not just him. There's everybody, because you have to do that within the team structure on top of that.
That's right.
It's not just you're not out there just one-on-one.
That's right.
So there's so much going on with that. Well, back when you were a freshman, you played on some good teams in Illinois. What do you remember about being a freshman?
That I was going to drown. You get so much thrown at you. And remember, guys, you still got to go to class. You got to study. You got to do well in class. You have to attend class. So
you got to work out. You got to lift.
Yeah. It's not like you can just wake up and then chill until it's time to go to practice. No, you got to wake up. You got to make sure you eat. You got to get to class on time. You have to be attentive. You have to, my dad was a college professor. There was no excuse for me not to be engaged in class. So the classroom part, then rushing home to try to get some lunch, and then get over to practice, and then go lift, and then go to training table, then go to study hall. And by the time you look up, it's 8:39 at night. And then you still have to study. And then you got to get down and then try to get up and do it all over again. It's a grind, and it takes a while to get yourself into the rhythm. Like Jim, I'm 55. It takes me it takes me about a week or two to get into the college basketball season from calling games. I'm not even playing. I'm not even going to class. And it still takes an adjustment period to catch up to the speed of things. So as a freshman, it was about the 7th or 8th game of the season. I started as a freshman, and then I started the rest of the way through. But even in that first semester, it was a blur. And I had to lean on my Doug Altenberger, Ken Norman, and Tony Weisinger. I had to lean on the veterans big time to kind of catch up to the speed of college life. It's not easy, and it's an adjustment period.
Absolutely, and especially here in the preseason, because you mix in, like I said earlier, you've got games where they may be against lower level teams. I hate to call them that, but then you got to quickly step up all of a sudden. And you think the game's going fast, but the good thing about playing some of these teams, even Marion, which was an exhibition game, those dudes were small, but man, they were fast. And Indiana was like chasing them around nonstop. And defensively, in their last game, they were just still learning the assignments. They were leaving guys open on the perimeter for a bunch of 3-point shots, but that was mainly learning the defensive assignments. And that's why McKenzie and Bacco spent most of the second half on the bench, which it is rare that you see a 5-star of his talent sitting in the second half for that amount of time. But he was probably able to learn more from the coaching staff sitting there than he would have been out on the floor.
I agree, Jim. And had I not gone to practice and watched the body language of the Hoosiers in the preseason, I may have been a little concerned, but I'm not concerned because McKenzie is a super young man. He's a yes, sir, no, sir type of guy. I'm sure it didn't feel good sitting on the side, but he can be there with the coaching staff and some of the veterans and watch what's going on. They can point certain things out to him. And it was a great learning experience. And so, the thing that these young men don't understand a lot of times is that I don't care who you playing. Marion, you can play UConn, you can play James Madison, you can play Colgate. These dudes are on scholarship for a reason. They can all play. They may not have the size that an Indiana has, but these players can play. And generally, when you're playing teams from a Sun Belt or a Big South or Missouri Valley Conference or someone like that, they're generally older. And so you're going up against players who are 3-4 years into their programs, or they've been transfers at other situations. So they come into these early games with a little bit of an advantage over freshmen from Power 5 conferences because they understand how to run their stuff. They understand how to run counters. They watch if McKenzie is up too high on the line in terms of trying to deny his guy the first pass. They'll cut back door on him. Those are all little intricacies that these older players understand that freshmen, even 5-star freshmen like McKenzie, they just don't have knowledge of yet. It's coming, but it takes time to understand that. And so I think that was a good thing that McKenzie was on the bench for the majority of the second half because he's got to learn what the level of expectation is day in and day out.
Kel'el Ware, another new face, but he's a sophomore, but he's starting to show his value. I mean, that length is just a game, can be a game changer, and especially on the guys that he's not guarding because they're not expecting him and they put up a shot and all of a sudden here comes me with a broom and knocking the shot crazy. That length is going to do Indiana some very, very good.
Oh, I think that Ware could be the surprise player of the conference, and no one's talking about him. Everyone knows about him, and I think that Oregon did him a disservice by putting out what they did about him in terms of his lack of consistency, and maybe they questioned his motor. I think that's terrible to do to a young man. However, Indiana's going to be the beneficiary because that young man, I know he's got something to prove. And when you watch him move, I want Indiana fans to think about this for a second. Next time you watch Kel play, look at his legs. He's got some of the best. He's got a pair of the best legs that you're going to find on a big man in the country. And what I mean by that, he's already got the length. He's got the skill set. His strong base will allow him to do a lot of different things that a lot of bigs around the country can't do. So he'll be able to get the shots from weak side defensive position. He's going to be able to provide post moves in the lane. He's going to be able to run the floor. And I think the kid can shoot threes. I don't know if Mike is going to allow him to do it yet, but I saw in practice that he's got the ability to shoot threes. He's got a feathery touch. He's an outstanding talent. And if defensively, if he can lock in on that end of the floor early, man, that changes the game for the Hoosiers in terms of competing with the elite. And we'll find out soon because he's going to match up with Donovan Clingan, one of the best bigs in the country out of UConn. And Indiana will know, and Kel'el Ware will know early where he stands among the elite.